you didn't expect to be talking about meaningful football at this point in the season.
No, not after 3-9 last year and 3-9 the year before. I think at the start of the season, if you'd have said 6-6 and you get to a lower level bowl game, everybody would have been thrilled. I think enthusiasts, supporters here, they would have taken 6-6 in a heartbeat, given where the program was. And we're going back to the previous coaching regime that left this a train wreck, basically, with sanctions and scholarship reductions and recruiting limitations. And for Kenny Dillingham to turn this thing around in a year is phenomenal. I don't know of a coach that stepped into a harder situation 2 years ago and has done this phenomenal of a job.
Well, he's a young guy too.
Yeah.
And I know that he was 32, I think, when he took the job.
34 now.
So, yeah, he's the ripe age of 34 at this point. So,
Ripe is right.
You know, what is it about him? What has he been able to do with this program that has ignited things so quickly?
Well, first of all, he's got an infectious energy. And anybody that saw the post-game interview against Utah that went viral, like, how do you not want to play for that guy?
Right.
You know, he can relate to the players because he's not that far from their age, really. He said he's always been truthful with them about things. He's flat out up front about things. He's never lied to them. And there's a buy-in that, you know, everybody says buy-in, culture. And, you know, I kind of get sick of those words because everybody says they have it, even if they don't. And I guess I'm going to go back to the Cincinnati game and as an example where it told me a lot. So after the game, they had lost that game. Jeff Sims quarterback because Sam Levitt was hurt. And as we're waiting to go into the locker room to do our interviews, the interview area, I'm standing off to the side. And Xavier Alford, one of their safeties, is standing at the end of the field. And after every single teammate walked off the field, he was slapping them on the back, giving them a hug, whatever. And he didn't leave the field until he had personally consoled, touched base with every single player that left the field.
Wow.
And that's not something that the coaching staff told him to do. That's one of the team leaders taking accountability and setting himself out there as a leader and just kind of wanting to set the tone. But he literally stood out there for about 15 minutes and waited for every last person to leave the field.
And I would just follow that up by saying Kenny's got all the energy of the Energizer Bunny, and everything you said is exactly right. The kids relate to him. There's no doubt about it. My question is this team more than just Scattaboo? If BYU loads the box and they can bring the heat on run defense, what does the offense look like coming out of Arizona State?
Well, they did. They beat Central Florida without Scattaboo, and I think that was good for their confidence. I think because they showed they can win without Scat. And I mean, I don't know if you saw the video of it, but Scat was begging the coach to put him in the third quarter.
I did see that. Yeah, I did see that.
And none of us are surprised. Okay,
yeah.
He was texting Kenny a week, an hour before the game, saying, "Can I play? Can I? Can I? Can I?"
Nice.
And coach is like, "No, you can't."
Okay.
So I think that kind of sent a message. Number one, that you got a guy like Scattaboo that wants to play, like he's all in. He wanted to play that badly. Okay. And then you've got a coach that is sticking to his guns and saying, no, we need you later on. I'm not going to put my player's safety at risk. And I think
which is opposite of what they did up on the hill in Utah.
Exactly.
In Salt Lake City, they kept playing people left and you're right.
And you're giving the message to the rest of the team, like, we trust you guys, the other running backs. So I think if, like, let's say, he decides to use them, now you're sending a message to your team, like, we don't trust the rest of you.
Right.
So I think that they can. And, they're also missing Raleek Brown, who was basically going to be a 1-2 punch with Scattaboo to a hamstring injury. He came over from USC. So in that game, they were basically without their one and their two running backs. Okay. So yes, I think they can. And I think Levitt is getting better every week. And he's got a connection with Jordan Tyson that's phenomenal. Those two are so in sync. So yes, I think they are more than Cam Scattaboo. I think what Scattaboo is the Energizer Bunny that just is his energy is infectious too. And I
Right.
think the team feeds off of him. So I think that when he's not in the game, that's kind of what you miss. But he's also there giving the juice on the sidelines too. So the answer to your question is yes. I think the fact that they did win without him proved a point and was probably a good confidence builder for the guys.
Jordan Tyson had a monster night against Kansas State. And obviously, Michelle, a lot of people are just, even the most ardent college football fans nationally are just starting to catch up on this. When the record looked like, 3-2, 4-2 in that range, okay, well, it's a weak schedule, and
Right.
that's nice that they're a little bit better this year. But then they just kept winning and winning and winning. Now going to Manhattan, Kansas as like an 8-point underdog and pulling off that game and having the lineup against BYU this week, I think is gaining some attention. They've got a pretty prime position at 3:30 Eastern on ESPN. A lot
Yep.
of people are going to watch this team for the first time this Saturday. So, what do you have to tell everybody about this Arizona State football team?
Well, I think when you go back to the Kansas State game, that was not as close as the score indicates. It was 24-0. So I know that when we're in the stadium and when ASU got the second touchdown and it was 14-0, that stadium, which was a sellout, went absolutely dead silent. Like you could have heard a pin drop silent. Like it was unbelievable. And I just think that it's a team that, first of all, they can play loose. They're playing with house money right now. They weren't expected to be in this position. There's no pressure on them.
Yep.
BYU is the team that's kind of been at the top. And yes, maybe their rise to the top was a little bit unexpected given where they were predicted. But more the pressure was on BYU, especially after now BYU losing last week. The pressure is really all on BYU. So I think that the Sun Devils can play loose, play free. And right now they I don't want to say they think they're unbeatable, but there's just this aura of like looseness about them where they think anything is possible right now. And the one thing Kenny talked about too, he said the one thing they didn't do well last year was overcome adversity, whether it was a penalty or a bad call or an injury. He said they didn't bounce back from adversity. And this year they've been able to do that. And he chalks that up to, again, the culture that's been built, the leadership with the upperclassmen on this team, changing the culture and changing the mindset. So I think it'll be a fun game.
It's a quick rebuild, right, for BYU and for Arizona State and Colorado. I think you're seeing three coaches that are really flexible and know how to use the portal, know how to use every NIL dollar they can get. And at the end of the day, next year is going to really tell which strategy is going to win out. Was this year the aberration with Colorado, Arizona State, and BYU, or was that now the rule? And you have schools like Kansas State and Iowa State that got to play catch up, along with Oklahoma State. I mean, it's fascinating how the season's gone over.
Yeah, and I think the one thing I'm seeing with ASU, it's kind of been a steady build. You look at the attendance early in the season, it was okay. It wasn't great. It's gotten a little bit better with every game. The NIL's gotten gradually better. I think now people are just over the moon with what Dillingham has done. And I think that they're just picking up steam at the right time. I think maybe the donors, boosters, businesses, whatever, that maybe were hesitant at the start because
Right.
they didn't know who Kenny Dillingham was. Now they're all on board. And I think that there's really the hard work is behind them. I think the hard work was building a trust, gaining, getting some respectability. I think the hardest work's behind them. Because like I said, I think from here on out, anything that they do is a bonus. So I kind of see it from a standpoint of fan interest. NIL is going to get better. And that's what was lagging. And that's one reason that ASU was in the position it was in at the end of the Ray Anderson, Herm Edwards era,
Right.
complicated by the NCAA situation. So I think everybody is so elated with how things are going now that I think this thing is only going to keep picking up speed.